Right, hi guys. I'm going to give you guys another top tip. So for this week, and it's quite topical actually because we've been doing a lot of this recently, but visas for China. Obviously, you're going to want to get over there. You're going to want to meet as many people as you possibly can, especially in your industry or in your community, and you'll need a visa to enter China. Now, there are a couple of different ways in which you can do this. The easiest one is actually going for a tourist visa. Um, with applying for a tourist visa, you only need to provide your flights and your accommodation details. Um, Anything beyond the tourist visa that gets a little bit of extra complications, but if you're actually going specifically and only for business, then you could also look to get a working visa or a temporary business trip visa, which you will need an invitation from whoever you're going to meet. So actually, if you're going to go and see a couple of different people, what I generally would suggest is go down the tourist visa route, especially when I go over. You know, I'm leaving on the 14th of October, so in a couple of weeks, and within 2.5 weeks, I'll be in five different cities, and meeting 30 plus different organizations. So getting an invitation from, you potentially could get an invitation from one of them, but having to break down each different area you're going to in China, it just makes the whole process a lot more complicated. So being if you're staying in China for longer for work purposes, and if you're looking to sign contracts, or if you're looking to get anything really solid laid down, then you'll need to look for a more official work visa. But obviously, if you're going to be going over to sign contracts, then an invitation letter from whoever you're going to go and work with, it should be a lot easier. Make sure you give yourself plenty of time with getting over there. There are a couple of nice little variations that you could play with, especially if you're going on a trip to a number of different places. Shanghai and Beijing used to have a 72-hour transit visa, which basically means if you're transferring onto an ongoing flight to a third country, then obviously you wouldn't need a visa to go and mooch around and see what's going on in either Beijing or Shanghai. They've actually extended that to 144 hours, so you can basically get away with about 3 days of being there. So you've got to fly in and fly out of the same city, and obviously going to a third country. So if you're going on to any other country in the world, as part of a tour, then you can get away with not having to get a visa. Um, they do take a little while. The major places you can look at: London Embassy or the consulate in Manchester. There are a couple of different visa agencies that you can use. I generally use a visa agency in Manchester, as we're based in Liverpool. Um, you can apply via post, or you can get an appointment to go in, or you can just turn up. But if you're going to turn up, make sure you get there nice and early, because they can be pretty busy. One thing you must bear in mind is that the Chinese public holidays apply to those who work in the visa agencies, so especially the consulate as well. So make sure you double check on Chinese national public holidays, because you don't want to turn up at the visa office and be like, oh, it's Golden Week, or oh, it's Spring Festival. There'll be especially if you're traveling from Scotland. I bumped into people in the past who've turned up and been like, "Oh, I've just got off the train. I didn't know that Trunjie or Qingmingjie, um, you know, it can bite you in the backside." So just make sure you do a quick web search, find out what the Chinese public holidays are. If you're not traveling and you're posting, make sure that you've downloaded the most up-to-date form from the website. Word of warning, they don't always update the websites in time to any policy changes. So I have in fact in the past downloaded the most up-to-date, filled in, and got to the visa office, and they basically said, it's the wrong form, you have to fill this in, you got to add that, which is slightly frustrating, and they generally don't have any patience to kind of say, walk you through exactly how you should have done it. But it's just one of those things. So if you are posting, make sure that you've got enough time to post it, and if there's anything wrong with it or any additional documentation, that they've got time to contact you and for you to post back. Do not do anything via post if you're in a rush. Make sure you make the effort to get down there. But as I say, post is more convenient. If there are a number of you, or if you're going part of a group, then generally I'd always get an invitation letter. Um, depending on the time scales that you have and who's organizing your time in China. For example, if you came on a delegation with us, then we would line all that up for you. And actually, if you were going on a tour, the company that you're working with, they should be able to provide you an invitation letter. There might be an extra fee sometimes from other organizations, but again, if you're coming with us, we get all that lined up for you. So when you're getting your visa, make sure you have at least 6 months left on your passport. Quite an obvious one. But also, there's some really weird extra criteria you've got to follow. So if you own property, for example, in areas which are on a certain watch list, they might ask you to provide more documentation. So we've had people who've owned houses in Turkey, for example, who needed to show deeds and all sorts of weird things. So just make sure that, again, if you've travelled into other countries and on a certain watch list, then they might ask you some more questions. But more often than not, provide more information than you need, provide more documentation than you need. Make sure the passport photo is correct. Make sure that your any photocopies, they're legible. And make sure you've got all the documentation ahead of time to go in as a pack. You don't want to be going there and back a number of times. Generally, go in, you submit it, they'll give you a ticket depending on what you've paid for. If it is express or just normal, then you book a time to go and collect. Once you've collected, you pay on collection. Generally, a tourist visa is like 150 quid. Business trips can vary a little bit more than that. But as I say, it can be a little bit tricky, but you can actually do it on your own. More often than not, as I say, when we're organising delegations or trips out there, we do it all ourselves because the guys in the office, they've got a lot of experience in these things. Attention to detail is super important. So yeah, top tip is give yourself plenty of time. Make sure that you have all the correct documentation. If you can't get an invitation letter, do it. If not, it's not the end of the world. I'd go with a tourist visa. If you want to save a bit of money, you're going on to a third country, go for the transit. But make sure you fly Beijing or Shanghai. There are a couple of other places, but if you're traveling internally, obviously the logistic and the transport networks are better. So I implore you guys to crack on, get on over to China, and I'll catch you again for the next top tip.